Hey y'all, so I am here with Arbor Image again. Bert and Sean are here. Many of you know that we are a part of their quarterly maintenance program. So they are here for our fourth quarterly maintenance program, and they will be doing deep root fertilization for all the trees specific to this time of year. And then they're also here for an unfortunate reason, which is if you watched the last video, we did have to replace the sewer line to our garage apartment, and they did have to get into some roots. So we asked the plumbers to be very careful. Unfortunately, there was just no way around it because that sewer line ran so close to that tree and its roots. And so immediately last week when we found out where that line ran and it was right there by that redbud, I texted Sean and said, hey, this is a situation we're dealing with. I know this tree will need something. Do you think it's worth saving? Do you think there's something that we can do for it? And he said, yes, absolutely. It does. It will need some help. And so they are here today for that. And I think that for those of you that live in older homes with aging infrastructure, this is something that you're gonna run into at some point. The sewer lines are gonna need to be replaced. The water line main is gonna need to be replaced at some point. And so trees are just collateral damage in this situation because the infrastructure has to be addressed. And so I am going to turn it over to Bert and Sean, and they will walk you guys through the deep root fertilization for this fourth quarter treatment, as well as what is involved in the tree IV and why we chose to do the tree IV. So let me turn around real quick and they will share that information with you guys.
So today, as a part of the regular program, we're going to go through and deep root feed all the evergreens specifically. And then we're also going to put out some biochar around all the deciduous trees. What this does is a lot of your evergreens going into the wintertime, they don't shed their leaves. So they need a little extra boost just to help them through the dry, windy winters that we have here in Oklahoma. And then that biochar helps amend the soils for all your deciduous trees. That way they have really good microbiology in the soil. Now, when Sydney told us about some of the excavation that was done by the trees, what happens is when you have this really big canopy, or really big root section, and then half of it gets severed up, the tree can't absorb the right amount of nutrients, water, and things that it needs from the soil. So what we're gonna do today is called a tree IV. We're basically gonna go in at the base and bottom of the tree to bypass the root system and give it all the nutrients it needs for the next 2 to 3 years to give it the best possible chance of surviving something as traumatic as this.
And so I know, I think it's good to have, like you guys, obviously you want to call a certified arborist for something like this. You don't want just any tree person out here looking after something that was as invasive as that. So I think it's obviously ideal to have you guys come out and take a look at it. And you guys were honest. You said, it's gonna need something, and it still may or may not make it, but it was worth it for us because it is a pretty large tree. It's a structural plant for our backyard, and the pricing is most definitely cheaper than going out and even buying a new tree. So yeah. What did you tell me that one was going to cost back there? It's by the caliper and the diameter of the trunk.
Yes. So basically your average price is going to be anywhere between about $20 to $25 per diameter inch. So when you have a 10-inch diameter tree, which is about that big, I mean, you're looking at around $200 just for that single tree.
Yeah, and that, I mean, if you went to the nursery and bought, a 7 or 8 foot tree, you're going to pay significantly more than that. And so for us, it's worth it. We're going to give it a shot. They were realistic and said, we'll see, time will tell, but we're going to do what we can. And so will you explain kind of like, is there specific nutrients that you guys are putting into the tree?
Yeah.
What is it exactly?
So it's a complete fertilizer. Okay. So it's going to have your nitrogen, your potassium, your phosphorus, but then it has all of your small stuff like your boron, zinc, iron, manganese. So it's a very balanced nutrition that we're going to be putting into the system because we're wanting to cover all of our bases with it. It's not typically the best source of action if you're wanting to do just gradual fertilization with your trees, because you have to actually drill holes in the base of the tree in order to hook up the IV. So it will leave some wounding at the bottom. Those usually close up in about a year from what we've seen. But the biggest thing is we're just trying to make it to where this tree has every possible resource to survive. And then the challenge is going to be over the next 2 years, making sure that it gets enough water, that it gets, you know, enough like deadwood pruning out, stuff like that, to really make sure that we are conserving all the resources of the tree as possible during this time. Because without the root system, I mean, trees are just going to struggle like crazy. And especially the closer you get to the tree when construction work begins, the more and more root loss you have, and the harder it is to replace all those fibrous root systems that have been undisturbed for decades sometimes.
Yeah, and I think also for us, you know, it's back there, a lot of people don't know where their sewer lines run, and ideally that tree would have never been planted there. I think that tree was a volunteer that kind of grew there. It's a little bit close to the foundation as well, but it is a structural plant, and we're hoping that, you know, redbuds are pretty tough here. They're the state tree and they're fairly hardy, so we're gonna give it a shot.
Yeah, definitely. At least give it every chance it can to survive.
Okay, very good. Well, I will let you guys do your thing and just follow you guys around. And as we come to the back, when we start the tree IV, I'll film that and any other information we can add. So,
Okay,
all right,
thank you.
Let's get started. This is our backyard right now. Quite the mess, and this will also give a little preview of what's going on back here. I haven't really posted much, and we expect to have grass in by the end of the day today. So once they get their equipment where they need it,
I'll get it turned on for you, Bert.
I'll get up closer. And they are also going to do a tree IV on this tree as well. So we had to replace the sprinkler system back here to be a lot more efficient since we removed the turf, and they had to, the main box and where the main line comes from the front of the house was right over here, and so a trench had to be dug here. They got as far away from the tree as possible, but they did get into, you know, some smaller roots and things like that. And it's just kind of unavoidable when you're doing a project that is this large. And so, I mean, you know, it's one of those risks that we decided to take by redoing the whole sprinkler system. We just couldn't figure out exactly where all the lines ran, because I think I mentioned in a previous video that it was an older sprinkler system, and as you make changes to your landscape, the sprinkler systems change and you alter them, and we really just didn't know where anything ran, and for the application that we needed it for the lawn, it just really all needed to be changed. So Bert is back there in the hydrangea pit and the mounding where we mounded all of the things that we took out over here. And so I'll wait till he comes out here. So they're getting some pavers set here as well, getting them nice and level. Let me also show you this before they get over there. So this is where the plumbing ran. You can see a large root there, and this is where the sewer line ran. It's hard to know where those infrastructure parts run until you actually have an issue with them, and a lot of people don't know. And so and they're not going to be replaced until obviously there's an issue. And the unfortunate part was we were hoping that instead of running out right here, it ran out of the back behind where the raised beds are, so that we didn't have to get into any tree roots. But sometimes that's just the card that you're dealt, and so we are dealing with it now and doing what we can to help the tree out. Don't look too hard over there. Those were some of the boxwoods that were multiple boxwoods put together, and so we had really dry root balls on those, and we'll get those replaced here pretty soon. We actually have some that are out there in that pile that will be going up here. Also think that another benefit of them of being a part of their quarterly maintenance program is they will be able to monitor these trees that they're giving the IV. So if they need something, you know, coming up in the spring, they will say, I don't know if this tree IV is doing what we wanted it to. Maybe we could try X. So that's another huge benefit of their program, in my opinion. And you will also get a little bit of a sneak peek of the front. I'm planning on getting all of this planted today. It's a lot, and I really meant to get it planted earlier this week, but we've just had a lot going on with the back and things like that. So, little sneak peek of the front. And so they mentioned in one of the previous videos that basically this fertilizes, deep root fertilization. They have air, I believe it was, that at a certain PSI pushes all of the fertilizer down. So it also aerates the soil as it's fertilizing. And I will also share all of Arbor Image's information as always. There is their phone number, their website, and I will link in the description below as well. Once we get to the back and they start doing the tree IV on the redbud, I will also show you a previous picture. Tommy had taken some pictures while I was out of town of the trench and the roots. And actually, I think the last video also shows that open trench, and I'll post a picture of it though in this video, and you can go back and reference that. I'm certain that Bert hates me right now with all of these plant containers in his way as he's trying to manage that hose. They actually expedited our fourth quarter deep root fertilization due to the redbud in the back. So I was expecting to have all of this front yard landscaping done prior to them coming, but unfortunately that didn't happen. Okay, so Sean is measuring the tree to...
You gotta make sure we get the right dosage. So this is a 6-inch caliper tree right here. And then basically, we're gonna go in and I'm gonna drill right here at the base of the tree.
Let's see if I can get down here.
Like that.
And you're going in just a certain depth to get, because before you guys had told me about the vascular system of the tree is only so deep underneath the bark, right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to go too deep because then you're just wasting product and it doesn't actually translocate throughout the tree. So you want to make sure that you only go to the xylem tissue, which is why you really need an arborist when you're doing this kind of specialty work. And then we actually go in, we place the IV to where it's nice and snug. valve on, and then we dose. And basically this measures out the pressure. And so we're going anywhere between 60 and 20 PSI, and it's putting all the product right into the tree. The great thing about this versus like some of the other tree injection equipment that we have is this is a plugless system. So it regulates the pressure to make sure it moves throughout the tree. A lot of other systems will require a plug just to keep all the chemicals contained, and you don't really know if it's translocated or not.
Okay.
Sometimes this system takes a lot longer, but you know that it's actually getting into the vascular system of the tree. And then, yeah, basically as it goes, I'm gonna make 6 different injection sites around here at the base of the tree to inject the fertilizer into. And then when you're doing injections, like great arborists are gonna pick spots that translocate really well. So anytime you see like a root flare, something like that, it's gonna translocate a lot better than if you were to go into one of these where it's caved in right here, because there's not near as much flow. So even just picking spots to inject is a big deal because you don't want to wound the tree more than you have to.
And so they also did something similar on our large oak when we tore the vine off of there, and I called them and I said, hey, I see these holes. They said that is borer activity, and they did something very similar to this, but it was an insecticide instead of just a fertilization.
Yep. Okay. And there we go. You can see on the hole, we maybe lost a milliliter or two that leaked out, but the rest is all absorbed throughout the tree.
Cool. That's awesome. So much to know about trees. It's really interesting to me. There's just so much that goes into tree care that, you know, a lot of people I think take for granted. I think there's a lot of trees out there, like, you know, especially in this neighborhood, that have gone through a lot of things and survived. And I'm sure, you know, maybe not treating that tree over there, like maybe okay, I don't know, but I'd rather not take the risk.
Yeah, especially because, I mean, that's such a mature tree.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to plant something that size.
Yeah.
And you'd spend thousands planting something half the size. And most of the time we get like calls in, like usually years after construction disturbance, and then it's just too late.
Right. So I made mention earlier in this video that as soon as I knew where this plumbing was coming from, I called them because I knew that there was going to be absolutely no way that we were going to avoid some roots on this tree. And so I called him and he said, yeah, we'll get out. And you actually moved up our quarterly maintenance to come address this tree. So we are super thankful for that.
Yeah, no problem. I just love the communication. It's way easier to deal with stuff on the front end.
Way easier and cheaper, I'm sure, to deal with it on the front end than wait for years to go by and your tree starts struggling. And
well, and then at that point, sometimes our only options are removal and replanting, and the costs just add up when you do that. And because you're having to put a brand new tree in the location, a lot of times it's not ideal anymore because you've moved so many other pieces of the landscape around, like installed rock or hardscape, or you put patio furniture or decks around certain things. That tree is a centerpiece, and trying to put something back in its place is just incredibly difficult.
well, it's like what we talked about in the front. You know, we don't want to lose that tree because we can't plant a tree anywhere close to that for the next a lot of years. Same with back here. Our lots are so small that the large structural plants that you have in place are where you want them. And when you lose something like that, obviously here now in this situation, we're not going to be able to plant anything here because there's a sewer line there now, and we wouldn't be able to even plant anything in this exact spot for years to come. So
Yep.
cool. No loss there, it didn't look like.
Huh. Move this.
Sure.
They've grown into each other.
Don't worry about it. It's all going to be replaced here pretty soon anyways. So I left Sean back there in the back. He's drilling some more holes, but I thought I would come up here and catch Bert. He is about to spread. What is it again, Bert? Remind me what he said.
It's called biochar.
Okay.
And so it's this nice, fine, powdery black material. And what it does is it adds tons of humic acid,
Okay.
Which is your deadest of the dead stuff in terms of organic life.
Okay.
A little bit of actual biochar itself, which is just burnt down organic materials.
And this is something that you guys that you just apply in the fall?
Yep.
Prior to winter?
So because we focus our deep root fertilization, in the spring we'll focus on our deciduous trees, and in the fall we'll focus our evergreens. This is just what we use to supplement. So in the spring, oftentimes you'll see us spreading sulfur around our evergreen trees, just to help increase that soil pH, or I should say decrease the soil pH, making it more acidic, and helping gain some of that green coloration back into our evergreen trees during the spring.
And this is actually probably perfect time because a lot of these boxwoods have been transplanted. So they were all here, but we moved them around to accommodate the new landscaping that'll be going in soon. So this will be perfect for them.
Between this and the fertilization, everything will be nice and happy here. And this is also great given that we've got some new plantings that are going to be coming in, because we'll get a chance to rain this down or water it down and really get it working in the soil, which is going to just increase how much these can actually take once we get them in the ground.
Awesome. And so after something like this, when you guys do the deep root and this topical application, we should water.
Absolutely, yeah. It's only going to do it favors. Yeah, obviously, if we're getting any decent amount of rainfall, I would say you don't have to stress about it too much. But anytime you do a fertilization, whether it be topical or in ground, watering it down, diluting it, it's only going to help it uptake faster into everything surrounding it.
Okay, back with Sean and getting a tree IV on this redbud. This is the largest redbud in the back, and I spoke to him about the trenches that were dug for the sprinkler system, and we opted to go ahead and do an IV on this one as well.
And this one was about 14 inches in diameter.
Okay. And so I asked you off camera earlier, I wasn't recording, but I asked you specifically on the other redbud that you've already treated, what our chances were for that tree to survive. You told me what?
So right now with that tree, with the amount of damage that it had and the proactive treatment we're doing, I'd say it has about a 70% survival chance, because we were so quick being able to come out and mitigate damage. The real test is going to be next summer when the heat really cranks up. We're going to have to look at it real close, because that's the next big danger window is next summer. But I'd give it about 70%.
Okay, so I mean, the odds are good, worth a shot, most definitely. If they told us that, that we had like a 10% chance of this tree surviving, we'd probably just take it out and start over. But because the survival rate is honestly better than I expected when you told me that, I think this is the best course of action. So
yeah, and if you would have waited a year, the odds probably would have been flipped.
Okay.
Before you told anyone. So I mean, I would say there's probably a 30% chance of survival, because there's not really anything to mitigate. It's just letting it play out at that point.
Right. And it's still, going to be a waiting game at this point, but at least we've done what we can.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
And then the Oklahoma summers, and there's also some people that commented on some of the larger roots that are more for stability of the tree. People were concerned about that. And, you know, for us, it's, if that tree fell, it already leans and it's really not big enough to damage the structure. So is that a concern? Some of those larger roots when we get some windstorms?
It definitely is. Anytime you're doing construction, the big thing about this redbud is that you didn't, like most of your anchor roots, I mean, they're going to flare out in your cardinal directions.
Okay.
I mean, not north, east, southwest
Right.
exactly, but they flare out.
Okay.
So just eliminating, you know, a few big ones isn't a major issue as long as it's in like a backyard setting to where it's not going to be, it's not in the middle of a prairie to
Right.
where you're risking wind.
Okay.
But if that was a front yard tree, I would definitely put stakes around it.
Okay. That's good to know because I did have some questions on that on some things I posted, and I'm not familiar enough with trees and what roots are for what purposes, so I thought I would ask that as well.
Yeah, the ones that are the fine absorbing roots, a lot of people call them root hairs. Those are the ones that absorb all your water and nutrients.
Okay.
And those are the ones that get eliminated in bulk whenever you do big construction projects.
Right.
And so that's the main concern. I mean, if that was in your front yard, I'd be a lot more concerned about it blowing over.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we were, you know, obviously we got into a lot of those fine hair roots, and so for that, we're obviously going to keep this well watered.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I had texted you last week about this, you had said, make sure those roots stay damp. And so we've been watering as much as possible without completely making it a muddy mess back here. And we're expected to, I think, get some rain next week. So that'll be helpful. So.
Great.
All right, well, Arbor Image is done for today, and I hope that this was helpful. I know there's a lot of old house people that subscribe to this channel, and inevitably, you know, something like this will probably happen where old infrastructure is needing to be changed out or replaced. So I thought that, again, it would be fun to share the tree IV situation with you all because I hadn't experienced that either. So that's all I got. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. And I will link all of Arbor Image's information in the link below, so check them out. Bye, y'all.